plus years of experience in enterprise cybersecurity, networking, server administration, and programming. He specializes in security architecture, engineering, automation, and operations, improving team organization, morale, and cross-functional collaboration. He's dedicated to attracting, developing, and retaining talent, advocating for diversity and inclusion in cybersecurity. He resides in Northwest Ohio with his wife and 2 children, enjoying family time, cooking, home improvement, reading, and his home networking lab. Give it up for Michael, folks.
Thank you, everybody. So I titled this talk, Let's Talk About Bruno, because for those of you that have children and have seen Encanto, we don't talk about Bruno, just like we don't really talk about the real reasons why there's a cybersecurity talent shortage. There's a lot of them, but unfortunately, a lot of them are also self-inflicted. So agenda, we're going to do quick introductions. We're going to talk about the problems themselves. We're going to do some deep dives into some of those. And then we're going to talk about what we can do, both as hiring managers and as job seekers. And then we'll kind of summarize at the end. So pretty much covered already everything about myself, so nothing really needing to be diving in more about that. But let's talk about you. How many of you are cybersecurity professionals? Okay, a few of you. How many of you are also hiring managers? Okay, a couple folks. How about people trying to break into the industry? Okay, so we got a nice mix. Anybody students? Awesome. So we got a good mix of everybody. So the problems. It's really a double-edged sword. So from the hiring manager's perspective, we have a lot of issues finding qualified talent. And there's also a disconnect between HR and our needs. We'll talk about mainly when it comes up to job descriptions as to one of those challenges. A lot of times, managers are also not aware really of what their team's requirements are because they may not be as technical as some other managers. There's also a limited number of positions, and this is something that there's not a whole lot we can do about, but continually advocate for. A lot of times we also find ourselves in need of senior skill sets, which means there aren't very many entry-level positions. And part of this is due to the limited number of positions we have available. And then sometimes we run into unrealistic candidate expectations. From the job seeker side, we have issues getting interviews. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen on LinkedIn where someone's talked about how they've put in hundreds of applications and received no callbacks. And then they also, if they do go through the process, I mean, kind of like what Matt was walking through earlier, if anybody attended his talk, you get all these through these interviews and you still don't ultimately get hired. And then we find that there's a lack of entry-level positions. And then we kind of find ourselves in a chicken egg scenario where, you can't get the job without experience, but you can't get experience without having the job. And then a lot of times there's unrealistic job descriptions, and I have some fantastic examples of that coming up. So let's do the issues deep dive. Let's talk about each of these. So let's talk about the lack of entry-level positions. One of the things I see in our industry is there's a lot of internships where people can kind of get their feet wet in the industry. And there's a lot of mid to senior level positions, but there's not really a good transition of true entry level where you're first starting out and you're going to be learning a lot on the job, and not beyond just what you normally get in an internship. Now, some internships are really good and they cover that entry level position, but in some situations you don't have that. And we have a lot of cybersecurity roles that are expecting underlying IT knowledge, which leads to a lot of folks, and this is kind of a touchy area in the industry, that consider cybersecurity not truly have an entry-level position. Well, I mean, even if you're looking for hiring an IT person, you're looking for them to have, if you're hiring a server admin, you're expecting them to have the underlying IT and server knowledge. If you're looking for someone to have, or to hire as a network administrator or network engineer, again, you're looking for them to have that underlying IT knowledge. Same thing goes with cybersecurity. It just means you need a broader realm of base knowledge. And that doesn't mean that you have to have a job to get that knowledge. The talk I just gave was talking about home labbing and how you can teach yourself those skills so that way you are, you have that underlying IT knowledge so that that's not a gap. So the other thing is we have a lot of roles posted as entry level that have unrealistic requirements, either in the form of years of experience or certifications. Certifications is one of my favorite ones. And this is often because of the salary limitations for hiring companies. So really what they're looking for is a senior individual, but they only have the salary they can offer for an entry-level position, which is why a lot of times we run into this. And that's a hard challenge to overcome from a hiring manager perspective, because you've got to continuously advocate for what the cost is and what the average, salary position is for the senior to mid to senior level folks. As far as unrealistic expectations from companies, we have a lot of entry-level positions expecting many years of experience. Again, you can't get the experience without having the job, and you can't get the job without the experience. Entry-level positions expecting a master's degree. A lot of the times, most folks don't get their master's degree until after they've usually been out in the field for a while. They usually get an associate's or a bachelor's, and then they go back for that other degree. Entry-level positions that expect a CISSP. Can anybody tell me why expecting an entry-level position to have a CISSP is a problem? Yes. You have to have 5 years, not just experience, proven experience in several of the domains of cybersecurity to get a CISSP. Meaning, without the experience, you cannot physically get that degree. Meaning, it's not an entry-level position. I don't even have my CISSP. I've got a whole can of alphabet soup behind my name and certifications. I still don't even have my CISSP. Senior level experience requirements, paying less than 100,000 K a year. So this is a problem, especially in rural areas like Northwest Ohio and Northeast Indiana, because a lot of the places do not honestly have the budget to where they can pay, even senior level folks into the 6 figures. And this is a challenge for a lot of folks that are, trying to break into the industry, because that means that entry level is much lower than that. And then the senior level folks usually end up moving out of the area to go for a better salary. Now, remote work has fixed that, a lot of that. And that's also a way that companies can address that issue. And then expecting security folks to know everything. I'm trying to remember which talk it was earlier where someone was talking about knowing the password or knowing how to fix somebody's printer. You can't expect security folks to know absolutely everything. I mean, yeah, there are going to be utility positions where somebody's pretty much doing all things. I've been in those positions. They suck. There's a lot of burnout. You're gonna get a ton of experience and skill set, but you're also gonna really not have that work-life balance that we all strive for. And then refusing to allow remote work wherever it's possible. There's a lot of times that we can do remote work. And we can actually train. It's been proven. I know there's a lot of differing opinions out there, but it's proven that you can hire people and train them, and they can work remotely, and they never even need to set foot on a company, premise. There's a lot of people have differing opinions about that. Not every position can do that, but there's a lot that can, and there's a lot that can do hybrid to where they don't even have to be on site all the time. Maybe they just come in for major meetings or some initial training. And then a lot of the times there's poor work-life balance. So getting and talking about these job descriptions, let's see if I can, that kind of works. So here, this is one of the ones that if anybody's been around for a while, they probably remember this one. There was a job posting with a minimum of 12 years of experience in Kubernetes. And at the time, Kubernetes had only existed for 6 years. This is a prime example of a poorly thought out job description. Somebody has some sort of requirement where the salary likely drives that they need 12 years experience in something that hasn't even existed for 12 years. Another example, and this is one that thanks to Ryan Fennell for finding this for me again, because I forgot about this one. But this person, this individual saw a job post. It required 4 years of experience with Fast API. They were unable to apply as they only have 1.5 years of experience since they created it. Maybe it's time to reevaluate the years of experience equals skill level. This one is for an information security intern. Requires a bachelor's degree. How many of you have done an internship? How many of you did the internship after you had your bachelor's? Or were outside of going for a degree? Not very many. They also expect you to be certified in one or more of the certifications. CISSP. They also expect you to have 7 years of experience in information technology security. A wide range of different other experience they expect you to have, including DNS, VPNs, VLANs, VoIP, TCP, UDP, IPsec, HTTPS, knowledge of advanced persistent threats, and the list goes on. Then there's this one that is a security engineer entry level. Qualifications, prefers a master's degree. 2 years of Linux, 2 years of information security, again, entry level. Say SSP is preferred. They don't allow you to work remotely. They, again, require a bachelor's degree, blah, blah, blah. Experience with the following technologies: Linux, Windows 10, Windows 7, XP, Vista, Windows Server 2003, Active Directory, SIM, Logstash, Hadoop, MySQL, Crate, NetFlow, PCAP, syslog, pretty much every operating system and most of the different technologies that you're going to experience in an environment. Not very good job descriptions. For one, it's hard to find, hopefully I'm loud enough that everybody can hear me. For one, it's hard to find people to fit these criteria because they're very rare. And two, it's hard to get people to apply because they look at this and they go, there's no way I'm going to get this. This is nonsense. And then this one's my favorite one. This one I found randomly. And the only thing I want to highlight is this section right here. All these different years of experience, it adds up to 55 years of experience for this position. And it's an AppSec engineer. So let's talk about the unrealistic expectations on the other side. A lot of candidates expect a senior level salary with no experience. That's one of the things we have to overcome. And there's a reason for this too. So it's not exactly like people just come in and expect, a couple $100K right out of the gate, having just freshly graduated from college and never have actually done anything in an enterprise of security. There's a reason why this is a problem, and I'll talk about that here in a second. Another is they expect senior level roles with no experience. I have personally interviewed a person for an entry level position that didn't quite make the cut. They were on the right track, but they still had some skill set they needed to focus on and knowledge they needed to have to baseline. But I was not looking at experience. I was looking at understanding of technologies and concepts. And I'll talk about that later as well. They also applied for a senior level position, someone that I expect to pretty much hire and then not have to touch. They're going to be completely self-sufficient, and they're going to take the program to the next level. They didn't even get an interview, and that was why, because I'd already interviewed them and knew they didn't even have the baseline knowledge to do an entry level position. Another problem is thinking a couple week boot camp makes them qualified for everything. And again, this is another problem I'm going to talk about here in a second of why this problem exists. Again, this is challenges that we face as hiring managers from job seekers when they're coming to us with these challenges, but these challenges also have a source too. It's not just that everybody's greedy and thinks that they deserve everything, despite what media would have you believe. And then a lot of times they expect huge training budgets. And this is one that I'm passionate about, but it's also a continuous challenge because the past several years have been very hard for a lot of companies, and they've been very hard on everybody. And a lot of times, one of the first things to go when you start trying to cut costs to save money is training. And sometimes you may be faced with, you either cut training or you get rid of someone. And that is a decision that most of us as hiring managers don't want to ever have to be put into. We don't want to have to decide who we don't have working for us anymore, or do we have a training budget, or do we buy a new shiny tool? I'm personally going to pick the person because I can find alternative ways around the shiny tool. I can find ways to bridge gaps with either open source technology or by just upskilling that person. And I can find tons, and have in the past, because I've worked with plenty of places with $0 training budgets, and I've gotten lots of my folks really skilled. And one of the things that I'll talk about a little bit later is actually from BHIS. Well, technically it's anti-siphon, but they have pay what you can courses that are very good. They're you can pay as minimum as $25 and get a week's worth of training from a guy who used to lead and be the lead instructor at SANS for pen testing, because he believes in giving back to the community. And I put all of my analysts at my previous job through those courses and went through them myself, and they were very good. So why do people think that they need that senior level salary, and why do they think that they're qualified to do everything after a couple week boot camp? Because of exploitation of the job seekers through the industry boom. What am I talking about? So unfortunately, the shortage of talent has made it easy for companies or groups to take advantage of the booming market and desperate job seekers. Basically, they're taking advantage of the fact that you are desperate to break into the industry, and that the industry is growing faster than any other industry, and are exploiting you by taking your money, giving you a bunch of information that is basically stuff you can find for free on the internet if you look hard enough, and then giving you these high expectations, giving you a certificate, and then you're out the door. And this is really just a bunch of unrealistic marketing and empty promises. There's plenty of notorious boot camps out there that do this exact thing. Unfortunately, there's also some universities that do this too. I forgot to start my timer. So I don't know if you can see it down here or not, but I'm not going to read the name of the college. But there was this article that came out in Fortune last year that really got my attention. Cybersecurity master's grads are landing 200K plus pay packages. So what does that say to you as a job seeker? You go and get a master's degree in cybersecurity, you're going to be starting out landing a 200K plus job. No, that's clickbait. It worked because I read it. But I also read it because I wanted to be able to know this is bollocks, and I wanted to understand really the details. So from that article, it says graduates from top-ranked cybersecurity programs can expect to make six-figure starting salaries between 100K and 200K. So, first off, this is already BS because they're saying it's technically between 100 and 200K. There's a long distance between 100K and 200K as a starting salary. And they're also talking about top-ranked cybersecurity programs, which leads us into the next one. It refers to a California-based school listing its program as the #1 program in the country. Let's see, 100K in California is probably what here? Yeah, 50 if we're lucky, yeah. So that it's also abusing the cost of living, which is not something realistic for a lot of the folks out here. And then it gets a little bit more realistic as we read on. It says, and I am not naming the schools, you can go read the article, you can easily Google this title. Fortune ranks as having the #2 online cybersecurity master's program. Graduates make $112,000 as the median base salaries right after graduation, and $126,000 when you're post-graduation. So it's a very small, I mean, it's a sizable, but it's a small jump, even 1 year after graduation. But now we're looking a little bit more realistic. And then to get even closer, it says the mean base salaries for cybersecurity grads, $77,000. That's probably a little more realistic, even in the Midwest, which is a 44% increase over what they earned prior to their enrollment. Fortune also ranks, and I thought this was kind of cool, Indiana as having the #4 cybersecurity master's program in the US. So good job, Indiana. But my point is this is giving this false sense of hope that, if you go and get a master's degree, I think my light stopped working. My battery's dead. I don't know that I can change slides anymore. So this is basically giving that false hope that, you go, if you're desperate to break into the industry, you go and get a master's degree, you think, 100K plus in your education, that you're going to turn around and be making 200K a year. No, you might be lucky to start out making around 70 something. I don't have anything else to say at this moment. Yes. I tried to not list the names of the schools. If you find the article, it does list it. It's one you've heard of. All right. So what can we do as hiring managers to start addressing these problems? First off, know your teams and your needs. Know where your skill gaps are. Where are the gaps and capabilities? Not just, who has what experience level in each skill, but know where you actually have gaps in your ability to deliver on your objectives. And for some managers, this may be pretty easy because you may already know this. Other managers, you may need to get a little bit technical. You may need to dig deep, and you may need to figure this out. You're also really going to need to know your folks and what their skill levels are. One of the things that I've usually done when I've taken over teams and I've not really had a familiarity with everybody, I kind of do a self-assessment where I usually come up with a different list of technologies and skills that I expect them to just kind of fill out and say, what comfort level are you in each of these? And there's two reasons for this. One, and I have a pretty good record of it being honest feedback. Like, people don't usually just lie. And the main reason that they don't lie is because if you say you're super comfortable in this, guess who's my point person the next time this happens? You're going to be solely responsible for leading it. Most people don't want that responsibility. And I would come out up front with that. So, What is your comfort level? Because if you're very comfortable, I'm probably going to have you being on point the next time we do something related to this. The other piece is where areas where you're not comfortable, I'm going to try and find you training and resources to help get you more skilled in that area. So it's beneficial to you, to be honest. Then focus on what will augment your team. So know where your strengths are. Don't just hire people with the exact same skill sets, because if you do that, you're going to run into the same problem where you have the same gaps in your capabilities. And this is where diversity comes into play. Not just in, culture or gender or nationality. Think skill sets too. Think backgrounds. I've worked with cybersecurity professionals, actually a couple of them, strangely enough, that have been bartenders previously and before they got into cybersecurity. Some that were in poker. By the way, you want to talk about a good threat analyst? Someone that used to be a poker player, they know threats. And also consider remote positions if you don't already. And this is one that you're limited to just the talent that's close by or talent that's willing to relocate when you have positions that require someone to be in the office. If you require them to only come in on occasion, like not a couple days a week, like maybe once a quarter or something like that, or a couple times a quarter, they may be more open to that. But if you consider remote options, you are pretty much opening up to the entire United States talent pool. So, and the other thing is from the opposite side, as a job seeker, you have opportunities all across the country now. You can work with companies that you actually want to work with, maybe not ones that you're just stuck with working with because they happen to be the only one that'll hire you in this particular area because of reasons, which may be some of the ones we've already talked about. So the other downside is, from a job seeker perspective, you're also competing against everybody else in the country for those positions. Another big piece, and this is one of the things that I've had the most impact in my current position, is work with HR. Get to know your HR team, collaborate with them, because they're going to be able to do more for your whole hiring process to help you and assist you with that than anybody else. Discuss hard company requirements. As much as I will talk about here in a minute, we try and eliminate things like education requirements, those silly certification requirements, years of experience requirements. Find out which ones of those you can flex or even break, because that's going to give you a lot more option in what you can put in your job descriptions to get the right people to come to your door. Discuss the things you have control of in the job description and the interview process. The interview process is just as important. And discuss qualifying and disqualifying questions for the pre-screen. So a lot of the times, most people that have calls with HR, the HR person knows absolutely nothing about the position they're going to be doing or the skills that are required to be successful in that role. So what I do is I talk to my HR recruiter and I walk through, here's some questions, like based off this position, these are things that I expect them to answer yes to, that they have understanding or knowledge about this. If they don't, we'll pass on and go to the next one. However, here's some disqualifying ones. Here's if they answer this, probably move on. And then there's usually going to also be a gray area. Say we don't get a whole lot of applicants, then these things are the hard requirements. These things are not. If they don't have these, but they have these other ones, let's go ahead and put them through the next step. And then take the time to go through a handful of resumes with them. This one I found really successful because I had a position that I was hiring for. I rescoped it from being, it was titled as a SIM SOAR engineer, and I rescoped it as an automation engineer. So I took the whole SIM and SOAR piece out of the title, because I think that was intimidating to some folks who don't have SIM and SOAR experience, but maybe they've done a crap ton of automation throughout their career and makes them the perfect candidate for what I was trying to accomplish. And I rescoped the entire job description. I didn't include that one here because I changed the job description so much. But I went through, because it was essentially an entirely new titled position with a totally different skill set, and went through several different resumes that for people that had applied with my HR recruiter, talking about these are the things that I'm looking for out of their resume. These are the things that stand out to me. These are things that I would just say ignore. Improve job descriptions. Consider diversity, equity, and inclusion. Again, most of us work for companies that are equal opportunity employers. And from a manager's perspective, we probably also have DE&I goals that we're trying to meet to help fix the issues in the industry with this problem. And you want to consider language that, which I have technically down here. You want to consider language that might be discriminatory or may discourage folks from applying, and try and eliminate that. And again, if possible, try and eliminate those educational requirements and try and eliminate those experience requirements. Try and focus on proficiency and expertise in this particular skills, frameworks, and technologies. And don't forget your OPSEC. So I wanted to throw that in because it's very important to not disclose too much about your company and the systems and stuff that you're running. So that way, you don't make yourself more vulnerable to attackers by disclosing too much information. But you want to focus on those things. So here's a prime example. This is an actual job position that I had. On the left is the responsibilities before, the right is the responsibilities after. This was not the position I was talking about, the automation engineer, but this is another one of mine. But on the left, you have the previous one, which lists a whole bunch of different things. I limited that down to a few more different, a more concise list. This isn't as important as this next slide, which has the required and preferred qualifications. So on the left side, we have familiarity with implementing, supporting, blah, blah, blah. Ability to do this, development of this, familiarity with this, familiarity with this, familiarity with this. One of the things you'll notice, even with the before, and this is something that happened before I even started at Cardinal, we have, for the most part, removed the educational requirements. There's nowhere on here that it says you need a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. One of the other things you'll notice is it doesn't even say you need a CISSP or a CEH or a Security Plus even. Those are things I'm going to take into consideration, as with all the other security hiring managers. But we don't have those listed as hard requirements or even preferred on a lot of our positions. I've done away with them entirely. Instead, I'm focusing on, and again, we do have some of it over here, familiarity with, experience in. I don't have a lot of the other ones because this is like a mid-level position. But you're going to be focusing on basically depth of knowledge, and that's what you're looking for. Experience is something I literally expect you to have experience administrating and supporting infrastructure and security platforms for an engineer, which is mid-level. I expect you to have experience with that. If this was entry level, it'd probably say familiarity, not experience with. If it was a senior engineer, I'm going to expect you to be an expert in managing these platforms. Something that you're going to be able to teach yourself pretty much any of the tools and stuff that I have and be up and running very quickly. And I try to keep this to like 4 or 5 bullet points. So that's why I kind of slimmed this down. And then preferred, it lists a whole bunch of different things here. Just familiarity with scripting technologies. I don't expect you to even have really written scripts. Maybe you just have familiarity with kind of how they work and what the basic components are. Familiarity with some frameworks, familiarity with cloud technologies. If you don't have these things, it's okay. Familiarity with containerization or infrastructure as code. Again, if you don't have these things, it's okay. So from a job seeker perspective, if you felt comfortable applying for one of these positions, which one would you be more inclined to apply to? The one on the left or the one on the right? Yeah. And then improve your interview process. Involve your team in the panel if you don't already do. Your team's going to have different perspectives. They're going to be the ones working alongside these folks. They're going to have maybe even a different way of looking at things. I've always tried to involve a diverse group of people from my team in the interview process because I know they're going to give me different feedback than maybe me or another manager in the organization is going to look at. Because they're going to look at it from the weeds too. Again, make these panels as diverse as you can. Depending on your company and your team, you may not be able to do, different genders, different races, but there's going to be people with different experience levels, different backgrounds. All those come into play. Focus on questions that allow you to gauge comprehension, critical thinking, and personality, as well as skills. If I was hiring a network engineer, I'm not going to ask them, can you tell me what the OSI model is? You know why? Because I don't care. I don't care if you can recite the OSI model to me. What I'm going to say is, I have an issue where I have slowness maybe in here in the network. How would you go about troubleshooting that issue? If I'm hiring somebody as an incident responder, I'm not going to ask you, tell me what 5 different kinds of malware are and give me the definitions. I don't care. You can Google that stuff. I'm going to ask you how a malicious email comes in. How do you go about investigating that and responding to it in the organization? What if someone clicked the link? What if they did this? Those are the kinds of things. That tells me your comprehension of what the question I'm asking and that skill set, and if you're able to if you know what you're talking about. You're not just regurgitating a bunch of knowledge that you've dumped into your brain. And then discuss the expectations of the position and highlight important things from your team's culture. I think this is very important because as much as from a lot of the times from the job seeker perspective, it can feel like, you're the one being interviewed, but it's a two-way process. You're deciding whether or not you want to work for this company as well. Regardless of what their benefit packages and everything else is, you're deciding if they're a good fit for you. And like again, when Matt was talking earlier, he turned down two times where Google offered him a job because that didn't fit with what he wanted. He also said that he made very strategic choices in the careers he took between when he was originally trying to get into Microsoft and when he finally did. So those are all things to consider. And then network. How many of you are looking for a job right now? Those of you that are hiring managers, talk to these people. Also consider getting involved in local professional groups like BSides, ISSA, InfraGard. So what can we do from the other side of the table as job seekers? Research job descriptions, look for patterns. So I know you're gonna see a whole bunch of BS. It's gonna happen. Look for the things that are the same kinds of skill sets and expectations that are across, I'm still doing good, right? Yeah. Look for patterns across the different job descriptions. And then the next thing is pay attention to the skills that are required. This is gonna tell you the skills you need to have to be in that position. You're probably not gonna get it from a single job description. You may not get it from 10, but if you look at enough of them over a course of time, and maybe that's something you can create a pet project for, or create a Python script that scrapes web sites that actually have job postings, and then creates a database that you can query. I mean, that's just something you could potentially do. If you're looking for a Python position, that would probably be a good way to say how I got here. Also find companies that have similar values as yourself. Again, like I said, it's a two-way process. The company you're working for, you're a representation of that company. Do you want to be? Not just do they want you to represent their company, do you want to represent that company? And be aware of job descriptions that describe more of a whole team rather than a single role. It's a burnout warning. If you're starting out, you don't have a family, you've got tons of drive, those are great positions. I've worked in them. But you're not gonna have a good work-life balance. You are going to burn yourself out. You are going to be stressed. You're gonna learn a ton. But you are also going to be very burned out in a very short period of time. And if you have a family, it's gonna be very hard on them. I'm glad that I had those positions before I really had a family. Level set your expectations. Be realistic with the salary expectations and current skill set, but also don't undersell yourself. Find the job titles, look on places like Glassdoor, and I can't remember the name of the other site off the top of my head, but there's a few different sites you can go out and actually see what the average salary is for that position. Put yourself somewhere in the median. I can tell you it's not gonna be 200K, unless you're going for like a CISO, and then I don't know why you're listening to me, because I'm certainly not there. Determine which areas of cybersecurity interest you. Security is a very broad field. There are, security AppSec security folks. There are incident responders. There's pen testers. There's lots of different. There's GRC where you don't even have to be technical. You just need to understand controls and frameworks. Figure out which areas of those interest you, and that's what you can target. And when you're breaking into the industry, be open to a variety of different roles. They might give you different perspective. There's stuff that I've discovered that I really don't like doing in security, like risk. Third-party risk, not something I enjoy. But like incident response, engineering, architecture, those are all things I very much enjoy. And then consider IT roles that intersect with cybersecurity when you're starting out. Can anybody tell me some examples of what IT roles would intersect with cybersecurity? IAM, that's one. Backup and replication. Yep, disaster recovery. Here's a hint, it's all of them. They all at some point intersect with cybersecurity because there's usually a countering component of cybersecurity to every single IT area. So use things like that when you're focusing on your experience and skills, because chances are you probably already have experience in those areas where they're saying you need experience in. It's just in a specific niche on the IT side, not the security side. But those are things to focus on. Fix your skill gaps. Remember those patterns from the job descriptions? It's time to upskill. Home labbing is a great way to do that. And see the recording of my other talk, I'm assuming they recorded it, where I'm talking about building home labs. That's a great way to teach yourself new skills. Also, I know I kind of gave them a little bit of a bad name earlier, but boot camps, certifications, and online training, all great resources to learn. Just be cautious and make sure that you're not, getting yourself in one of those that's probably just after your money and doesn't really care about your outcome. And then again, I mentioned BHIS and Anti-Siphon have pay what you can courses. They're very good. Because they're built by people who have been in the industry for a long time and really do care about, bettering everyone. And another thing is you get out what you put in. There's plenty of folks I know that have certifications that, I mean, they can have every certification out there, and they have zero actual knowledge. Like, I know people that have literally self-taught high school dropouts that can run circles around people with PhDs in cybersecurity. Why? Because they get out what they put in. They've really been passionate about it. They've really went after it. And there's a huge difference there, and you can tell when a person's talking about it and when you're interviewing them. And then tailor your resume, not to a specific job. I know a lot of people say you need to create a specific resume for every single job. People put hundreds of applications in. Matt said he put in like 500 applications in like a year or something. And that's insane to try and think of 500 iterations of your resume. Instead, not do it to a specific job, but rather a job function. So if you do want to go to be like a pen tester, focus a resume towards pen testing that highlights those kinds of skills. If you want to be a incident responder, same thing, GRC, whatever the case may be. There's tons of different roles out there, but map it to a job function. And if you want, make multiple iterations of your resume that you can have a variety if you're flexible and still just trying to break in. But then you're going to have focus to try and get the attention better. And one of the things is structure your resume to highlight what makes you the ideal candidate based on your experience. And do this, think above the fold. So in the web development world, we have what we call above the fold, which is basically before anybody scrolls. When they first land on your website, that's why you see all those big hero sections on websites. The call to action's right there. The minute you land on the website, you don't need to scroll three quarters of the way down the page. You don't need to click 3 links deep. It's right there. What they want you to do is right there in the front. So that's what you should do with your resume. Focus on that. If you don't have any experience, put your education at the top. If you have a ton of experience, put that at the top. Focus on putting the very first thing that they're going to see as what really highlights you as an ideal fit. And another thing, always be prepared to speak to anything you put on your resume. This is a big pet peeve of mine. If I ask you, if you have things on your resume that map to what I'm going to be, what I'm trying to fill this position for, I will ask you about them. And if you can't speak to them, guess what? You're disqualified. Because I expect you to put things on your resume, because if you're lying to me about that, what else are you lying to me about? I expect you, if you put something on your resume, if you don't know it, don't put it on your resume. That doesn't mean you're not going to get through. If there's other things that still qualify you, then you'll get through the first round, at least get through that screening call. And like I said, I try and personally make sure my HR counterpart knows what I'm looking for in that position. And if you're the right fit, you will at least get a screening. I can probably speak for at least 10 minutes to a single thing on my resume. Some things probably a lot longer, and people would regret even asking me. But always make sure that you can speak to anything you put on your resume. Networking. The hiring managers out there. Are you hiring? You have any positions open? I think one of them left. Okay. Well, unfortunately, the idea was if there had been several of those folks in here, they're probably over here listening to Dragos. Talk to those folks. So if you're at a conference like this and you know of folks that are hiring, talk to those hiring managers. Networking is a great opportunity to get you in the right conversation with the right folks. And then get involved with the professional groups, like I said. Make connections with like-minded folks on LinkedIn. And also get to know some of the recruiters, especially the corporate ones. So when there are positions that are posted, even if you don't necessarily get the interview or get the job, get to know the recruiters that are posting those positions, because the more you know them, the more they know you, the more you might come up in conversation when they're talking about the next posting that they're doing for the company. So in summary, for hiring managers, know your teams and needs. You're a hiring manager, right? Since you snuck out and snuck back in, I'm going to draw attention to you. Yeah. Do you have any positions open right now? Not for SecOps. Okay. I was going to say, my previous slide, I was like, if anybody's hiring from the job seeker side, talk to these folks. So you made it out clear on that one. Still maybe talk to him. He might he might have some other positions available. All right, but know your team and needs. Collaborate with your human resources department. They're going to be your best. They're going to be the best way you have to get access to the applicants that are out there that are qualified for your position. Improve your job descriptions. Stop all of the require a CISSP for an entry-level position nonsense. Improve your overall interview process. Network and be realistic with your expectations. If your salary that you only have available for an entry-level position, don't be expecting people with 12 plus years of experience to be applying for that position. Because chances are they're probably not, especially with remote work being what it is now, they're going to go work somewhere else for double the salary. Job seekers, research your job descriptions. level set your expectations and determine your interest, fix your skill gaps, tailor your resume to a job function if you necessary have multiple iterations of it, and network. Any questions? Yes.
One quick comment and a question.
Sure.
Comment related to where to check for salary and stuff. Levels.fyi. In addition to
Yep.
Glassdoor.
Yep. So anybody that didn't hear that, levels.fyi is another good site to check salaries.
And then my question, one burning question I had, you're like the second or third person that made a statement to the effect of scrape LinkedIn to determine who is hiring for what.
Yep.
So my next concern or question is, for lack of a better way to put it, how hard should I push towards like OSINT enumerating, like just hardcore, just straight up hacking, social engineering, enumerating these people to skip past?
So I wouldn't use the term social engineering or hacking in that statement, but OSINT, absolutely. I've also be careful how much you OSINT, because I've OSINTed myself out of job interviews. Like I've went to their website, their public website, clicked on things like their employee webmail, and it loaded an Exchange 2010 server. And then when I was in the interview, I'm like, hey, I see you're running Exchange 2010. You got a roadmap for getting that replaced? Don't call us, we'll call you. So be careful how much you actually reveal when you are researching the company, but it's also good to know that kind of stuff because maybe you've been through that and you don't want to do another email migration. So maybe you want to avoid things like that. And you know, from a security perspective, that's a huge risk. If they're still running Exchange 2010 and it's publicly facing and you're hoping there's a laugh in between and all these other things, it's important to know those kinds of things, but also be careful the kinds of questions you might ask interviewers because you might scare them. And that's exactly what I did in that position. Definitely don't ask them how their niece's birthday is. You might be escorted out of the place by security in that case. So as far as, I would definitely say, put some OSINT into it, research the companies, read the reviews about the company from what other employees have had to say, because that's gonna let you know, for one, a lot about the culture. You wanna get an honest opinion from somebody, get somebody that left. They're going to tell you it was a great place to work for, or it absolutely sucked. I didn't have any life. I had to get out. So pay attention to those kind of reviews. You're going to always have those people that are going to be very negative. So take each one with a grain of salt. But if you see a pattern, like every single person says it's terrible to work here, leadership doesn't care, that's a problem culture. You probably don't want to be in there. Yeah, pay attention to the salaries. There's a bunch of different things to look at, but don't obsess over it. And also don't dig too deep to where you get yourself in trouble. Any other questions? Yes.
From the hiring side, would you say that when a company posts a technical position and they aren't receiving a lot of applications for you as the technical person who will be overseeing who's being hired are not receiving any resumes being forwarded to you from HR, would you say the number one problem in that pipeline is lack of communication between the technical person and the HR rep putting up the job description?
So, and this was kind of what spawned me to redo all of my job descriptions, was the fact that I was having issues with getting either the right kind of folks. Like I get them in into an interview, I'm like, this person doesn't have the right skill set. And I look at the job description, I'm like, well, this is a very broad job description. They're probably thinking, well, I've got this, and I'm actually looking for this, which, that's a waste of both of our times. So it depends on the company. When I have that issue, it's usually the socialization of it. Now that I've redone my job descriptions, and apologies, I do not have any open positions right now. Otherwise, I'd be like, let's chat. But I will take the postings and I post them on like our Discord channel here for Fort Wayne BSides. I post them. I think BHIS even has a page for jobs. I post them there. There's like a handful of different places I post the positions. I socialize it on LinkedIn. So I try and increase the engagement around that position rather than just the recruiter putting it out on Indeed and LinkedIn and wherever else. I try to draw attention to that. And I also try and talk a little bit additional stuff that is like besides just what's in the job description to help, encourage folks to apply. So that's one of the ways I try to address that. But a lot of times it is that disconnect between, what's being put out there versus what the person actually expects. And from a hiring manager perspective, the only way to fix that is by going through your job descriptions and working with HR. Yes, I had a question first, real quick.
So I'm not really a hiring manager, nor am I a candidate. I'm a community member, community member that
I've talked to a lot of folks that because they don't have the experience or in their opinion, they're fresh grads or whatever, that don't feel comfortable applying for positions. In fact, one was the one I socialized from my company, and somebody, I was DMing them in the Discord channel. And they're like, well, I don't know that I'm a really good fit for that because, I'm fresh out. I'm like, you never know until you apply. You fail to get 100% of the jobs you don't apply for. So if you feel that you're comfortable, and the biggest thing is do you feel comfortable reading the job description that you think you could do the job? Don't worry about, you need 10 years of experience doing this, you need 5 years of experience doing this, and all this other stuff. A lot of that stuff's exceptionally flexible. Could you do the job? Would you be comfortable doing the job? If the answer you think is yes, apply. So that would be what I would encourage everybody to do from a job seeker perspective. And then from the community perspective, we've got to help each other out, encourage other folks that are kind of, a lot, the imposter syndrome is a huge problem in our industry. And a lot of folks that are very well qualified don't give themselves the chance. It's not just on the hiring manager side. And then you had a question. Mm-hmm.
So I ended up doing interviews with people who are supposed to be, let's say, senior architects, and 10 years of experience. The people who have all the certs, but they never, even on G, not even security, because they can answer a new knowledge question. Then I interviewed juniors and freshly graduated students, and then they came out and said the basic question. If they had a degree, if you tell them, can you explain to me the flow between machine A, machine B, how it data flows through the SI model, and what are the different steps? Give me two examples and one or two of the layers, and how would you attack communication? They can do that.
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, I think that's, especially when you're talking about your senior level positions, that's why I'm not a fan of, just basing positions like that off of you need a master's degree, or you need 10 years of experience in this, or you need all these different certifications. Honestly, to all of your question, the job descriptions are the problem. They really need to be adapted to focus on knowledge and skill set in the right areas, not just, who has how many years experience or who has what degree or certification. Because again, you get out what you put in. I know of plenty of folks that have had like 10, 20 years experience, even on the IT side. And then you have someone that's only been at it for like 6 months to a year, and they can run circles around them because they actually they've taught themselves, they've figured out how exactly things work. And they've really, like if they did do a certification or a boot camp, they really put in all the effort to fully understand it, not just pass the exam. They've went through and actually tried to understand what it was they were working with. For your entry level, yeah, I mean, honestly, both situations, you really just need to get back to those job descriptions. And I would say, rather than trying to just give your expectations or qualifications to HR, have the person in charge of the hiring process from the actual security or IT side work with them to create the job description. Go line by line if you have to. That's why it's important to know what things you can flex on and what things you can't, because maybe salary requirements require that they have X amount of years of experience before they can provide that level salary or title. So some things you can't flex on, some things you can. It depends really on the organization, but you won't know that without working with your HR team. And then maybe what you can do is focus on changing the wording, if they do require those years of experience, to be more broad. And then the areas that are just not listed as years of experience, but just more of familiarity with skill sets, you can focus on very specific things that you require. So that way you can hit the things that you actually want, still meet their requirements of, you need 5 years of experience. You can just say 5 years of experience in IT or cybersecurity. That covers a very broad scope of responsibilities. But then you can be like, specifically, focusing in these areas or familiarity or expertise in this, that's how I think you can kind of work around those kinds of challenges. Yep. Any other questions? Yeah.
General question. If someone wanted to break into or pivot into GRC, particularly if they're coming from say a cloud engineer or some other kind of business continuity kind of a background, or a project manager or ITIL kind of a background, how could that work?
So GRC is not a space that I have a whole lot of experience in. That said, having the ITIL side would probably help some. I think I think the biggest thing is understand the business, because the GRC is really all about relating risk to the business. So to better qualify yourself coming from pretty much any level of any other technical position to go to GRC, you really need to thoroughly understand risk. So get familiar with the risk framework, stuff like that, and get familiar with the business, what their goals are, not just the ones that you publicize as your company's goals, but get an understanding of what the real goals in the company are between the different teams, what their objectives are, because that's going to be the most effective way for you to relate risk of the technical issues back to them. Any other questions? All right, thanks everybody.